I still remember the night it happened. I was sitting at the dinner table with my family. The laughter was warm, the food smelled of roasted chicken and herbs, and yet a chill ran through me. Across from me sat an old friend who had joined us for supper. I looked into his face, so familiar and kind, but for a brief, terrifying moment, I couldn't remember his name. It lasted only seconds, but those seconds felt like a lifetime. My heart raced, my palms grew damp. I smiled to hide the fear, but deep down, a question echoed. What if this isn't just forgetfulness? What if my mind is beginning to fade? That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. What if one day I forget my children's voices, the stories of my youth, the love and laughter that shaped my life? What if dementia comes for me, and I slowly disappear from the inside out? I know I'm not alone. Many of us over 65, whether in America, Europe, or anywhere in the world, have felt those quiet moments of panic when a memory slips away too easily. We tell ourselves it's just aging, but deep down we wonder, could this be something more? Here's the truth. Dementia is not always inevitable. The brain responds to how we live, just like the heart or the muscles. And science has shown us that simple daily habits, how we eat, how we move, how we rest and connect, can protect memory and keep the mind clear for years longer than we think. So today, I want to share 5 habits that may protect your brain and preserve the stories, faces, and voices you hold most dear. Because the greatest gift we can give ourselves and those we love is to remain present, awake, and alive in the moments that truly matter. They say we are what we eat. And when it comes to the brain, this is truer than ever. I learned this lesson in the simplest of ways, at my doctor's office. He looked at me kindly and said, "Your brain is like a garden. If you feed it junk, weeds will grow. But if you nourish it with the right foods, memory and clarity will bloom." At first, I thought he was just giving me another lecture about diet. But then he showed me something that struck deep. A study revealing that people who regularly ate brain-friendly foods, like leafy greens, berries, nuts, olive oil, and fish, had a much lower risk of dementia. Not just slightly lower, but dramatically so. I remember walking home that day and opening my pantry. There were cookies, salty snacks, and processed meals staring back at me. Suddenly, they didn't feel like comfort anymore. They felt like thieves, stealing tiny pieces of my memory each day. That night, I decided to make a change. It wasn't about cutting everything out at once. I simply added a handful of blueberries in the morning, a drizzle of olive oil over my salad, walnuts in place of crackers when I wanted a snack. Slowly, I felt lighter, sharper, my energy improved, my focus returned. And more importantly, I felt hope, because every bite was like planting a seed in my brain's garden. Science now tells us something powerful. Foods rich in antioxidants and healthy fats don't just feed the body, they fight inflammation, protect neurons, and keep blood vessels open, so oxygen and nutrients flow freely to the brain. Think of it as keeping the highways of your mind unclogged. So the first habit is simple. Nourish your brain. Not with expensive supplements or miracle cures, but with foods that nature has always given us. Each meal becomes an act of love, not just for your body, but for your memories, your clarity, your very sense of self. There is a quiet truth I've come to realize over the years. The body may grow old, but it still longs for rhythm, for movement, for the simple joy of being alive in space. And this truth matters deeply for the brain. I recall meeting Robert, a retired carpenter in his late 70s. His hands were rough, his back slightly bent, but every morning at 7, he stepped out of his house with a determination that could inspire anyone. He didn't go far, just down the street, around the park, then back home. But to him, it wasn't just a walk. "It's my way of reminding my brain that I still have a destination," he told me. That simple sentence stayed with me because it captures the essence of daily physical activity. It gives both body and mind a reason to stay awake, alert, and engaged. Scientists often describe exercise as food for the brain. When we move, the blood circulates more freely, carrying oxygen and nutrients to every corner of our nervous system. This circulation feeds the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory. It's almost poetic, really. With every step, we're nourishing the very place where our stories are kept. Research has shown that older adults who remain active reduce their risk of dementia by nearly half. Not through extraordinary effort, but through gentle persistence. But I want to speak honestly here. Many older friends I know feel discouraged. They say, my knees ache, or I can't do what I once did. And that's understandable. Aging is not about pretending we are 20 again. It's about choosing movements that honor the body we have today. For some, it's a brisk walk. For others, it's gardening, bending down to tend flowers and lifting watering cans like small weights. Even housework, sweeping the floor, stretching to wipe a window, can become a form of exercise when done mindfully. I once watched my grandmother, well into her 80s, moving slowly around her kitchen. She chopped vegetables, stirred a pot, set the table, wiped the counter. It didn't look like exercise, but her body never stayed still for long. That gentle flow of movement kept her strong, kept her balance steady, and without her even realizing, kept her brain active too. There's also something about rhythm that heals. When we walk, when we stretch, when we sway, the body finds a beat. That beat communicates safety to the nervous system, like a lullaby reminding the brain, you are alive, you are capable, you are here. Robert once told me he liked to count his steps. Sometimes he whispered prayers under his breath as he walked. The combination of movement and thought gave him peace, a sense of order in a world that often felt uncertain. And joy. Let's not forget joy. Too often people think of exercise as duty, something to check off a list. But the brain responds not only to the movement, but to the pleasure inside it. Dancing to a favorite song, playing with grandchildren in the yard, or stretching in the sunlight with eyes closed. These moments don't just move the body, they brighten the spirit. And a bright spirit is one of the strongest shields against decline. So let me gently remind you, daily physical activity doesn't have to look impressive. It doesn't need an audience or a finish line. What it needs is consistency. The kind of consistency that tells the brain, you still belong in this world. You still have places to go. Even 10 minutes a day can plant seeds of protection, seeds that grow into resilience for years to come. And if you ever doubt it, remember Robert's words. Each small act of movement is a declaration of life. Each walk to the mailbox, each stretch before bed, each dance in the kitchen, it is your way of saying, I am still moving forward. There is something almost magical about the human mind. It never stops reaching for meaning, no matter how old we grow. I learned this watching my friend Eleanor, who turned 80 last spring. She had silver hair that fell like silk on her shoulders and eyes that lit up whenever she talked about books. Every morning, she brewed her tea and sat by the window with a notebook. Not a day went by without her writing down something she had learned. A new word, a recipe, even a story her neighbor had shared. If I stop learning, she told me, I stop living. That phrase carried more wisdom than I realized at the time. Because scientists have confirmed what Eleanor seemed to know instinctively. The brain thrives on curiosity. When we learn something new, our brain forms fresh connections between neurons. These connections act like pathways in a forest. The more we walk them, the clearer they become, and the easier it is to find our way through thoughts, memories, and ideas. I remember once attending a community class on history, surrounded by people mostly over 65. At first, many came just for company, or because their children had encouraged them. But over time, you could see the change. Eyes sharpened, laughter bubbled more often, debates grew lively. The act of learning didn't just inform them, it enlivened them. One gentleman leaned over to me after a session and whispered, I feel my brain waking up again. Curiosity doesn't have to be grand. You don't need to enroll in a university or master a new language, though those are wonderful challenges. It can be as simple as trying out a new recipe, reading a book you've never opened before, learning the name of a bird outside your window, or even listening to your grandchild explain how their favorite app works. Every time we step into the unknown, no matter how small, we give the brain a spark. Some call it neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to adapt, to grow, to form new pathways even late in life. To me, it feels more like gardening. If the mind is a garden, then curiosity is the sunlight and water. Without it, the soil hardens, weeds take over, and nothing flourishes. But with steady care, even the oldest garden can bloom with fresh colors. Eleanor once surprised us all by deciding to learn the violin at 79. Her fingers were stiff, her bow sometimes squeaked across the strings, but the joy in her face was unforgettable. She wasn't trying to become a master musician. She was reminding her brain that it could still be challenged, still be delighted, still be alive with possibility. And there is another quiet gift curiosity offers. It keeps loneliness at bay. When we remain interested in the world, we also remain connected to it. We ask questions, we listen to others, we join conversations, and in doing so, we weave ourselves into the fabric of life. Dementia often begins not just with forgotten names, but with withdrawal, with a shrinking of the world around us. Curiosity pushes back against that, keeping doors open where fear would close them. So let us treat the mind with the same devotion we give to the body. Just as daily movement strengthens our muscles, daily curiosity strengthens our brain. Pick up a book, take a class, try a puzzle, learn a song, explore a memory with your children, or let yourself be fascinated by something ordinary. Every act of curiosity is like lighting a candle in the dark, small on its own but powerful when practiced every day. And perhaps most importantly, remember this: curiosity is not about perfection. It is about wonder. It is about saying, even at 70, 80, 90, there is still more of this world left for me to taste. There was a time, not long after my retirement, when the house grew too quiet. The mornings stretched endlessly, the afternoons felt heavy, and even the ticking of the clock seemed louder than usual. My children were busy with their own lives, friends had moved away, and slowly I found myself retreating into silence. At first, I told myself it was fine, that I enjoyed the peace. But the truth was, loneliness had begun to wrap itself around me like a heavy blanket. It was during those quiet months that I came across an article from Harvard's famous study of adult development. The researchers had followed people for more than 70 years, searching for the secret to a long, fulfilling life. Do you know what they found? It wasn't wealth. It wasn't success. It was relationships. The simple act of staying connected, of sharing laughter, struggles, and love, turned out to be the strongest predictor of both health and happiness, even stronger than diet or exercise. I think of my neighbor Robert, who is 82. Every morning, without fail, he sits on his porch with a cup of coffee, waiting for the mail carrier. It's not the letters he looks forward to, it's the conversation. A few words about the weather, a story about the neighborhood dog, a laugh shared over something trivial. To Robert, these exchanges are not small at all. They are lifelines, reminders that he still belongs to a world that values him. Science backs this up. When we engage socially, our brain releases chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine, signals of connection and joy. These chemicals act like protective shields, lowering stress, improving memory, even reducing the risk of dementia. On the other hand, chronic loneliness has been compared by doctors to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of its damage to health. Friendship doesn't require a large circle. Often, one or two close connections are enough. A phone call to a sister, a walk with a neighbor, a chat with a fellow church member. These moments, though ordinary, stitch our days with meaning. They remind us we are seen, we are heard, we are still a part of life's great conversation. I once visited a community center where seniors gathered for weekly board games. Some were shy at first, others had lost spouses or lived alone. But as the dice rolled and the laughter filled the room, something beautiful happened. Shoulders straightened, eyes lit up, and suddenly, the years seemed lighter. They weren't just playing games, they were protecting their minds, their hearts, and their spirits. Connection also gives us purpose. When we listen to a friend's worries, share a story from our youth, or offer advice to a grandchild, we step outside ourselves. We become givers as well as receivers, and that exchange nourishes the soul. So if the days have grown too quiet, Take a small step outward. Call an old friend. Invite someone for tea. Join a class, a choir, a gardening group, or simply smile at a stranger in the park. You never know where that smile may lead. Because the truth is, memory is not just stored in the brain, it is stored in relationships. Every laugh, every tear, every shared silence becomes a thread that ties us to the fabric of life. And as long as we keep weaving those threads, we keep our minds strong and our hearts alive. I remember the night when sleep refused to come. The house was dark, the world outside silent, but my mind would not rest. I tossed and turned, listening to the old clock on the wall. Midnight passed, then 1 o'clock, then 2. By morning, I felt like a ghost moving through the day. My thoughts scattered, my memory blurred. It was in those sleepless nights that I began to understand how precious rest truly is. For many of us, past 65, sleep becomes more fragile. We wake easily, we drift in and out, or we find ourselves staring at the ceiling while the hours slip by. Some dismiss it as just another part of aging. But the truth is, sleep is not a luxury. It is one of the strongest guardians of our brain. When we sleep, our brain is not idle. It works like a housekeeper, clearing away toxins that build up during the day. Among them is a sticky protein called beta amyloid, which researchers link to Alzheimer's disease. Without enough deep rest, these toxins accumulate, clouding memory and slowing thought. Sleep, in its quiet way, is our brain's nightly cleansing ritual. I think of my friend Clara, who used to fall asleep in front of the television, waking at odd hours of the night. She often complained of forgetfulness, misplacing her glasses, losing her train of thought mid-sentence. At her doctor's advice, she began a new bedtime rhythm. Dimming the lights after dinner, sipping chamomile tea, turning off screens an hour before bed, and keeping a book by her nightstand. Slowly, her nights grew calmer, and with better sleep, her memory sharpened, her mood lifted, and her days no longer felt like battles with exhaustion. Science confirms what Clara experienced. People who consistently sleep 7 to 8 hours a night show stronger memory, clearer focus, and a lower risk of dementia compared to those who live with chronic sleep loss. It isn't about sleeping longer, but about sleeping better, reaching those deep cycles where the brain restores itself. Simple rituals can make all the difference. Keeping a regular bedtime, allowing the room to grow dark and cool, listening to soft music, or practicing gentle breathing. These are not grand solutions, but small, steady acts of kindness toward ourselves. And beyond the science, there is something deeply human in surrendering to sleep. It is a pause, a letting go of the weight we carry. Each night, when we close our eyes, we give our brain a gift, the chance to heal, to strengthen, to hold on to the memories we treasure. So if the nights feel restless, do not ignore them. Listen to what your body is asking for. Create a rhythm that soothes you, and treat rest as sacred. Because in the end, a well-rested mind is a mind that remembers, a mind that remains clear and alive even as the years advance. My friend, as the years pass, we all carry the same quiet fear of forgetting, of fading, of losing the stories that make us who we are. But we are not powerless. Each choice we make, each habit we nurture, is a thread that holds our mind steady against time. Eat with care, move your body, feed your spirit with learning, cherish the people around you. Rest deeply. These are not just habits, they are acts of love for ourselves and for those who walk beside us. If you carry one message from this conversation, let it be this: it is never too late. Even at 65, 75, or 90, we can still give our brain the gift of clarity, dignity, and presence. And if these words touched you, share your story below. Tell us how you care for your memory or what fears you carry. Because when we speak from the heart, we remind one another that none of us walk this journey alone. Thank you for being here with me today. Stay strong, stay gentle with yourself, and may your memories always remain close.